Okay, so welcome to this session. This is a post-lunch session, and we are going to talk about the ecosystem of assistive technology. How are we going to? We are going to look at the enablers for the assistive technology ecosystem. We have one invited talk, two paper presentations, and one panel discussion as part of this whole session, which will go up till 4 o'clock. So without losing much time, we have our first invited presenter, uh, Mr. Paul Kronenberg. He is a remarkable person with a remarkable institution that has been set up called Kanthari. Kanthari means chilies in Kerala. Of course, you know, people here may know better than me the translation of that. Uh, I'm chairing this session. I'm Dipendra Manocha, just to give me a name. Paul's institution, Kanthari, actually works with the youth. They actually train, they mentor social entrepreneurs or people to set up their own organizations and initiatives for empowering persons with disabilities. It's not national, it's an international program. People come from various developing countries to for a year with Kanthari, and they do a wonderful job there. And I think their work has impacted hugely this whole ecosystem. Today, Paul is going to talk to us about his title is on reading between the dots, the impact of self-confidence. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. How was lunch? Okay. So, on the screen, we see a little boy, little jacket on, has a white cane, walks in the courtyard of a school. His name is Kumi. This is how Kumi looked when we one day walked out of our office. And I said, Kumi, what's up? And Kumi, he was smiling from ear to ear. He says, I'm so happy. And you could tell. He was smiling from ear to ear and said, why? And he said, because, that's the first word in English we teach them. Because, and then he'll think, he says, because I am blind. Now that's not the first answer that you're going to expect, but it's a great answer. So we said, why? He says, I'm the only one in my family that can read and write. I'm the only one in my village that speaks 3 languages, Chinese, Tibetan, and English. And I'm the only one in an area as big as the Netherlands that knows that the world is round, and I'm surfing in the internet. And all because I am blind. My brothers and sisters don't go to school, and I'm here. So what happened? So this happened in Tibet many years ago. And so this is, I was very lucky in 1997. I was traveling, and I met a young lady in Tibet. Her name is Sabriya, and you met her yesterday here. And Sabriya is a fiery woman, and she developed the Tibetan Braille script. And when I met her the first time, she told me her story about her life, and I was sold. She said, I'm going to start a school for the blind. I said, you know what? I'll join. Am I audible? I think it's a little popping, is it? Okay. Okay. Can you turn up the mic a little bit further that I can keep it away? Is that okay? It's better now? Is it better? Okay. So Sabriya told me her life story, and I said, you know what? This is it. So Sabriya told me about a school that she was going to start in Tibet, and I said, I'll join you. Just give me a call. About 9 months later, she called me up, and she said, next week I'm flying back. And this was my moment, so I said, you know what? I'll join you. I quit my job, and we went back to Tibet together. That's where we found lots of issues. And Sabriya went on horseback to find out the situation of blind people in Tibet. And it was not good what she found, because she found lots of them, lots of blind children. They were locked away in dark rooms, and they were left there to die. People believe that they have done something wrong in their previous life, bad karma, and now they're punished. Parents wouldn't even touch their children because they thought they were possessed by demons. So if it wasn't for this boy that you see on the screen now, again, a young boy with a big smile, his name is Tenzin. So Tenzin was, on a trip. Sabria met Tenzin, and Tenzin said to Sabria, "Oh, you're blind? I'm blind too." And he said it with a lot of confidence. And Sabria was wondering, how come that this boy has this confidence? Because most of the blind children she saw, they were, absolutely, tied to a bed, couldn't speak, couldn't walk. So she asked the little boy, "What do you do?" And here it comes. He said, "I'm the yak herder in the village." So yaks are these big cows, right? So he had a task. If you have a task, you have a value. If you have value, you're respected. If you're respected, you get dignity. And only if you have dignity, you can get real self-confidence. Now, a lot of people, they don't make it to dignity. Why? Because there's so much pressure from the surrounding, from parents, brothers, sisters, but basically society. So Sabria knew immediately what to do. She said, "I'm going to start a place where we can bring these young children together. They get skills, they get value, they have dignity, they get real self-confidence, and they can go back to regular schools and integrate themselves." This was the idea. And so when I decided to join Sabria, we went back to Tibet, and we immediately had a problem, because how can we give these children hope? Children that were locked away in dark rooms for a long time. We came up with a solution. The solution was relatively simple. Most important question in life is what? What do I want? If I have to change this to I want to, that's where the magic begins. Correct? So Sabria and I, we thought, what can we do to have our children think about that answer of that very important question? So we started a dream factory. We asked these little children, what is it that you want? Dream big. It doesn't matter if you can or cannot do it. We'll solve that later, or you solve that later. So here's Norbu. Norbu is about 8 years old at the time. He has a big smile on his face, and he says, "I want to become a taxi driver." Of course, what will happen normally is that, "You're blind, you're stupid, you cannot do this." And we said, wonderful. We believe that we have no right to destroy anyone's dream. Just imagine, if we would believe in everybody's dreams, we would not be in the situation we're in right now in the world with all these problems, right? So 2 years after, we gave Norbu we said, wonderful. So 2 years after, he speaks English, Tibetan, Chinese, walks with his cane through the village, through the city. We asked him, what about your dream? What's the status? And then he said, well, now I realize that because I'm blind, maybe it's not a good idea to become a taxi driver. But I can set up a taxi company and run it. He went, 2 years after that, he went to Holland. He was the first blind person ever to fly in Tibet. And he flew all the way to Holland, learned how to make cheese, came back and started a cheese factory. And this is 20 years ago. Now he has a restaurant and a medical massage clinic. He's successful and happy. Why? Because he does what he wants. Now, why I'm sharing this? I think it's very important that we can we can talk about technology all day long. And technology is wonderful. But in the end, we're talking about people. And unless people don't have the confidence, because that's the first base, how are you going to push buttons of equipment when you don't trust yourself? So I think this is the first part where we should focus on. That's the self-confidence on people. So when we are looking at technology, we have to see what can be done first. And back then, when we started, we had a big problem because we had hardly any funds. So we came up with this method here. You see Yumi again, as a very young little boy. And we took Velcro, and we just cut it in pieces, and we made it into Braille shapes. This is how our kids learn Braille in the first steps. Now, moving on, and I will talk a little bit about a Braille typewriter that we're working on. And I hope some people are interested to help us with that. So if we look at technology in general, I think it's important to see that we not only think of how can we make something work, but we should think ahead of what are we going to do with the technology when it becomes redundant. A lot of products nowadays are made out of materials that are harming the environment, or that cost, the environment, it comes at an environmental cost when we get the resources for the same. Now, there's a few amazing examples of this. There's a documentary called The End of Ownership. And if you have a chance to see it, The End of Ownership. It's online. And this is a hole that you might, well, you haven't seen it from this side, but you probably have seen the Harry Potter movies. In the Harry Potter movies, this hole is New College, but it's from 1500s in Oxford. And you see the ceiling. The ceiling is made out of very big pieces of wood. And it was built in the 1480 somewhere. Now, 500 years later, these pieces of wood were gone. Termites, wood rot, but it lasted 500 years. Now, Oxford has a woodsman, and they have a forest. So they called up the woodsman, and the woodsman said, well, you need wood, don't you? He said, how do you know? He said, well, I saw the rafters. They need to be replaced. And then they said, well, did you plant some oak trees? He said, yes, but not me. He said, when were they planted? 500 years ago, when it was built. And they were built with the purpose to replace those wooden beams. This is thinking ahead, and I think this is something that we have to do further when we develop any kind of technology. If it's technology, a regular day technology or assistive technology. Now, the following example, this is also in the same documentary, and it's just to think ahead. This is about light. There's this, Thomas Rau is an architect, and he teaches in Delft University. Thomas Rau went to Philips, and Philips, they make lights. He said to Philips, I want to buy light. And Philips said, which one? And he said, no, not a light bulb. He says, I want to buy light. I have a light meter. I put it on the table, and at the end of the month, I get X amount of lux, and I pay you €8. And Philips was like, the guy's crazy, how is that going to work? And Philips asked the question. He said, but who owns the light bulb then? He said, yeah, you, Philips. He said, who pays for the electricity bill? You, Philips. What about the wiring and everything? Well, you. Who has to repair it when it breaks? You. So Philips was like, The one guy in the back, he said, wait, give me a week. They have lights that don't break for $200,000, $300,000. But they don't sell them because they wanted to. Now, imagine if you get a light bulb that's going to last for 10 years. Philips gets $8 per month. That's an easy calculation, and they are able to use that technology. So we have to think ahead. And Philips has the light bulb. It still owns that. So after 10 years, they get that material back. So there's no waste as such. That's no waste. I think that's something that we have to think ahead about. Now, coming to, we have a little product that we've been working on for a long time. It's a low-cost mechanical braille typewriter. And it's based on the Stainsby, which is more than 120 years old. And it's you see it here on the picture. It's a beautiful little machine. It's like a crab that has 6 legs, and it walks sideways, and it punches the little bumps in paper, but it goes downwards. So you have to lift up the paper to feel the bumps that you just created. So we've been working on this a bit, and we changed it. So first of all, that the sideway, way of typing, which is not very comfortable, changes to a frontal way. And we changed it that instead of pushing the pins down, the pins are pushed up. So you can directly read what you've written. Now, this is a few close-ups here, and I really hope that we get some people here, because the next step would be to build this thing with materials, hopefully materials that are regularly available, that are very easily available. So the springs, for example, we should not use springs that are specially custom-made for this machine, but we should take springs that come from a pen, from a ball pen, so that if somebody wants to repair this anywhere in the world, there's ball pens. So they can just pick that and fix it. It should not be that we create something that has to be sent back to the factory to be repaired, right? Everybody should be able to repair it locally and at very low cost. Now, so I hope anyone interested, please see me after and see if we can, because I got the drawings, I give that, and I think it's very important that we do this under an open source license so that it becomes available for anyone. Anyone can tinker with it. It should not be, there should be one small agreement that people are not going to make money with this. I know that it's all about scaling up and profits and all this stuff, but in the end, for somebody, and this is with the thing with the Rolls-Royce, for example, nobody buys the Rolls-Royce as the first car. You need a very low-key model that's affordable to learn how to drive. And then in the end, if a person enjoyed that first part and they make a career because that car gives them the opportunity to go to a job, to do the daily work, to make some money, or in the end, maybe they buy up ending a Rolls Royce. Now, I see the same with assistive technology. It should be first affordable for all, and then you might make your way up. Right? Yesterday there was an example with the wheelchair. People could now go to work. So it should not be that that first wheelchair is going to cost you a fortune. It should be affordable. Later on, when you have work and you earned, you can buy a more expensive wheelchair. I think there's a pretty logic in that, and I hope you share that with us. So we're already here. So we're in Trivandrum, and we run an institute. It's called Kantari. In Kantari, we train change makers from around the world that address social or environmental problems. We were in Tibet for 19 years, and then we came to to Kerala. And as you can see, Kerala has a very, very central location. Actually, it's the center of the world. Here in Chennai, you're pretty close, but Trivandrum is the place. Because if you look at that circle, in that circle, when you got on the right side, you got Australia, you got Asia, Europe, and Africa. That's where 85% of the human population lives. So demographically, we live exactly in the center of the world. So we found that out later, by the way. That was not the main reason for going there, but it's a good story. So we're in the center of the world, and we're training people in all the skills that they need to start and run their own social or environmental impact-making organizations. In the last 14 years, we trained 258 change makers from 53 countries. We have more than 160 organizations up and running, and they work with AIDS orphans, women that have overcome adversity that have seen violence, domestic violence, rape. They start women empowerment programs. It's called Change from Within. We very much believe, I'm not in India to change India. I never would, because that's not my role. Right? So change from within means that people come from a certain area, they have overcome adversity. Now they go back to that area. They know the language, they know the history, the cultural context. They have solutions for the problems they want to address, and they are part of their own target group. There's a few examples. We have people with albinism from East Africa. They're being chased and murdered and chopped in pieces. Their body parts are sold as good luck charms. It's terrible what's going on. We had several in our training. Now they're advocates against these killings. Now the biggest difference, when they go home, they can say, we should not be killed. It's not some foreigner that comes in and says, hey, treat each other nice. Right? So that's a very powerful thing. So now there's one issue. Missing. We're missing, and especially in India, change makers. They're hard to find. There are 1.3 billion people here. There must be more change makers that could join the cause. So we have a poster here on the screen, missing change maker, carries a plan for social change, age 22 plus. The reward is a scholarship. The scholarship is for 1 year at Kantari. I hope that you can help us find some. Don't tell people apply. Just ask them, here's a website, here's an opportunity, go have a look. If I have to, changes to I want to. That's where the magic happens also for these people. Nobody should be doing something for somebody else. They should be doing it because they want to do it. All right, so that's the last part. I thank you for the attention. I hope there's some questions. I'm happy to answer any of those.